Hello, and welcome to Toastmasters in the Community. I'm Fran Okeson, the host of the show, and we have a great show today. Due to Mother Nature, this show should have been played in March, filmed in March, but it wasn't. So we're going to start right away. I'm doing my speech at the end of the program today because this is a birthday tribute to Gregory Perillo, our Staten Island's favorite artist, and you'll find out more about him today than you ever knew before. So I'm going to go right into the program, and it's a different format, but I think it will work very well. I see my first speaker is up there already. What we're doing, I asked Greg Perillo, well, that's part of my HPL project. So I'm just going to start by introducing Sue Brooks, and Sue's title is Chief Sitting Bull. Let's all welcome Sue Brooks.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, fellow audience members, and the viewers at home. Today's speech is paying homage to Chief Sitting Bull, the leader of the Lakota Sioux. What a wonderful tribute to Mr. Perillo's 91st birthday. I had done extensive research about Chief Sitting Bull and used some sources from the Encyclopedia Britannica online as well as Mr. Perillo's website. I thought it was wonderful to show what a great leader he is, and since we are all Toastmasters, I wanted to bring forth some characters, attributes that Chief Sitting Bull exhibited during his life. He was born Tatanka Iyatoki as a Hunkpapa Lakota leader of the Lakota Sioux. He was born in 1831 and lived his life through 1890. During the course of his life, he encountered many obstacles in his home of South Dakota. As he became a strong leader, he was nurtured by several people in the tribe, and one of the things I found interesting was that despite all the obstacles he encountered with discrimination from the white man and battles that he encountered year after year, he was always forced out of where he had his tribes on the reservation. So he would move from place to place and encountered many battles. One of the more significant battles was with General George Armstrong Custer at the Battle of Little Bighorn in South Dakota, where General Custer was defeated. One of the more interesting things that I found was Chief Sitting Bull had a premonition of the defeat of General Custer during this time. Many of us know that the Native Americans engage in many ritual observations, including dance and prayer. During one of these pre-battle rituals, he encountered a tremendous amount of sacrifice and mutilation, and he had a revelation during that time where he saw in his vision men dropping out of the sky like grasshoppers, as he put it. He did go on to defeat General George Armstrong Custer, and his premonition was fulfilled. Another one of the extreme challenges that Chief Sitting Bull encountered was when the white man came in towards the Black Hills of South Dakota, when there was gold being discovered. Several obstacles were encountered, and he had to keep moving his tribe. Several of the winter seasons caused the team and the tribe to experience hunger and extreme famine. One of the other negative results of the white man coming in and invading the territories where Chief Sitting Bull and the Lakota Sioux resided was that the white men were killing off all the buffalo. They were becoming extinct. They were their prime source of food. So it became necessary for Chief Sitting Bull to move his tribe further north, South Dakota, North Dakota, into Canada. They were able to reside there for close to 4 years. But sadly, the Canadian government could not support these people whose primary reservation was south of the border. Over the course of the years, he did wind up getting respect as his tribe defeated the white man in several subsequent battles. But although they did win the battles, they could not win the war. Over the course of the years, as his fame grew and respect, at one point he was invited to join Buffalo Bill in one of his traveling shows. Chief Sitting Bull was invited to dress up in all his regalia and his finery, parade around on the horse, and he did that for a while, and he was well paid. But true to some of the values that we hold dear as Toastmasters, primarily integrity and respect, at one point, Chief Sitting Bull said, "Stop, I've had enough." And he relinquished this responsibility, although he was well paid, and said, "I'm not doing this any longer." Sadly, there was a tremendous amount of hunger and unrest, and he was killed while warriors were trying to rescue him. He did live a life of integrity, and he was esteemed by his people. Chief Sitting Bull. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Sue. Very nice job. Our next speaker is past District 83 Governor Paul Scharf, who is talking about Chief John Bigtree. Let's all welcome past District Governor Paul Scharf.
Madam Toastmaster, audience, and those out in the field. Chief John Bigtree, born June 2nd, 1877, died July 6, 1967. He was born Isaac Johnny John. He was a member of the Seneca Nation and an actor who appeared in 59 films between 1915 and 1950. In a minute, I'll read off some of the 59 films. Bigtree claimed to be one of the 3 Native American chiefs whose profile was composited to make a portrait that was featured on the United States Indian head nickel. And that nickel was designed by sculptor James Earl Fresner. The other 2 chiefs were Iron Tail and Two Moons. Bigtree claimed that his profile was used to create that portion of the portrait from the top of his forehead to his upper lip. Bigtree also claimed to be the sole model for Fraser's most recognized work, The End of the Trail. Both of these claims are broadly disputed. I'll explain that in a few minutes. He also appeared on the March 1964 cover of Esquire magazine in a pose commemorating the Indian head nickel. He was born in Michigan and died in Onondaga Indian Reservation in New York. His interment was also there. The U.S. Indian head nickel, for which Bigtree claimed he was one of the three models, also said the other chiefs were Chief Bigtree and a third one. Here are some of the titles of the films that Chief John Bigtree was in: The Spirit of 76, A Fight of Love, Avenging Arrows, The Iron Horse, The Frontier Trail, Winners of Wilderness, Sequoia Blood, The Singing Vagabond, Daniel Boone, Stagecoach, Drums Along the Mohawk, Western Union, and She Wore a Yellow Ribbon. One of the three men who posed for the artist James Frazier for the profile, which became the famous Indian head nickel, or the buffalo nickel, was minted between 1913 and 1938. The other two were Chief Two Moons of the Seneca and Chief Iron Trail of the Laquia. The image was reused for a special commemorative of the $50 gold piece in 2006, the U.S.'s first 24-karat pure gold coin. Bigtree was a member of the Seneca Nation. Robert Van Ryan is the individual who is disputing John Bigtree on the nickel. Having done plenty of research into the topic for who were the models of the buffalo nickel, I'm convinced that Isaac Johnny John, Chief John Bigtree, was not a model for this coin, despite his claims otherwise. I made my full arguments in my book, Twisted Trails, and have previously written about the topic for the Numenica News, which is a coin magazine, and have given a number of speeches on the subject. I won't go into detail here, but several factors, including a quote from the designer, James Earl Fraser, who noted that Iron Tail, a Sequoia, Two Moons, a Cheyenne, and a different Bigtree were on that coin. John Bigtree also claimed he was a model for Fresno's famous End of the Trail, which posed before the statue in Wampa, Wisconsin in 1960. I stated my research into models from the coin, believing he was a model for the coin, having seen John Bigtree on a TV quiz show when I was a kid. He claimed that Fraser used his forehead and nose in the design. It wasn't until I started working here at Krause Publications in the mid-1980s and began looking into the claims of other Native American who thought he was the model. John Bigtree's claim, and found that another Bigtree was more likely the model. Even though I don't believe John Bigtree ever modeled for the coin, and really doubt he had anything to do with End of the Trail statue, for the past several years I've collected many items related to John Bigtree, particularly photographs of him from his movie days. And here is a picture of John Bigtree. Madam Toastmaster.
And moving ahead, Our third speaker is Rachel Weiss. Who's manning your camera, Rachel? Okay, we'll see. And you're going to be talking about Chief Black Kettle. Let's all welcome Rachel Weiss.
Thank you, Fran. Chief Black Kettle. His real name was Moka TV2. Moka TV2. He was born in 1803. He was born in South Dakota. As he grew up, the American Indian was being kind of pushed and gathered together because the white man thought it was important to have borders. In the mind of the Indian, there was a unity, there was a balance between nature and man and sky. There was no need to own things and to have possessions. But Chief Black Kettle understood the mind of the white man and understood there was a hole in the white man's heart that was needing to be filled, and that void. As a result, he learned to become an ambassador, a peacemaker. As the Indians were being forced together from different tribes, from the Indian perspective, they were different nations being forced to meld together. Chief Black Kettle was able to be the one to help mediate that merger, help them to start to grow and learn and to live in harmony together. From the white man's perspective, all Indians were the same. In 1851, at Fort Laramie, Chief Black Kettle helped establish the treaty, which now took the Indians into the plains of western Kansas and eastern Colorado. The Indians were hunters, and they hunted buffalo. They also had farms. Well, in 1859, something called the Gold Rush took place, and they found gold at Pikes Peak. To the Indians, gold had no value, not the same value that the white man had. And rather than the government taking the white settlers and evicting them off the Indian land, the generals decided that the Indians would have to be moved. And so the Indians were moved to southern Colorado, to an area called Sand Creek. Now, Indians name things based on what they see. And when you think of Sand Creek, yes, that's right, it's sand. Sand does not help support agriculture. Sand does not support the tall grasses that the buffalo are attracted to. Sand is not a watering hole where animals come to gather to drink. As a result, there was nothing there for the Indians, but they tried to make do. Some of the younger Indians decided that enough is enough and wanted to go hunt their buffalo. But the buffalo are over 200 miles away. So where did they hunt? They hunted in what the white man boxed in, the local cattle, sheep. They needed to put food on the tables for their young ones, for themselves. Those renegade Indians that were doing these acts of gathering were called the Pony Indians. And the military was very up in arms about that, but they were being drawn back because the Civil War had begun. So a local militia in Colorado decided that they were going to go and get those Pony Indians and teach them a lesson. And they went looking for the Pony Indians, but they couldn't find them. What they did find is the reservation at Sand Creek. And in 1864, the Sand Creek Massacre occurred. Under a white flag of truce, this militia came in and killed over 150 old men, women, and children. This led to yet another treaty where the Southern Cherokee were taken and going to now be moved yet again. This was the Medicine Lodge Treaty of 1867. These Indians were now force-marched across from eastern Colorado to southern Colorado, from southern Colorado now to Oklahoma. And in Oklahoma, they were divided into two smaller communities, thinking from the white man's perspective that that would make them more manageable and controllable. Well, Chief Black Kettle saw the power of the white man's army versus the power of the Indian, and realized that peace was required. Peace. They moved into this community, and under Roman Nose and the Pony Indians, the villages were still being plundered, because the promise of the Medicine Lodge was that the Indians would be given food, clothing, materials to build shelters, and once they arrived in this new community, the government turned their backs on them. And again, they were starving. As a result, General George Armstrong Custer went in and again slaughtered all of those Indians, over 150 women and children, including Chief Black Kettle. This is a sad statement that we're getting from Indian, not only the Indian reservation history, but also from our national records. Chief Black Kettle.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Thank you. Okay, and moving right along, we have Joan Maurizio. I hope somebody's taking your timing spot over there. All right, and you're going to be talking about Chief Red Cloud. Let's all welcome Joan Maurizio.
Fellow Toastmasters, our audience, the viewers at home, and especially the people at the head table. I was given this assignment through the kindness of Fran, who pulled up a computer-generated history on this. My knowledge is limited, but I'll tell you what I can. The interesting thing about this Chief Red Cloud was, you think of the name at first, and you say, why a red cloud? You could picture anger, a very, very bad clay type of sandy dust storm. All sorts of images can come to your mind. But when you think of what he did for his own people throughout the years with more than one war, you say to yourself, all right, maybe Chief Red Cloud was a proper name. His parents died when he was young, so his mentor and the person that raised him and guided him was Uncle Old Chief Smoke. And Chief Smoke doesn't sound as bad as Red Cloud. So you say to yourself, okay, he had a pretty easy life, but then here comes the gold rush. They don't tell much about his personal life except one thing, and it was about that he married a lady called Pretty Owl, and they lasted for more than 50 years. I call that a successful marriage, especially in those days when you didn't even live to 50 years. But anyway, he had a pretty nice long life and lived through battles. Chief Red Cloud was having a very nice, quiet life until the 1860s gold rush came. And of course, the treasure hunters came, and they infringed on their land. They needed a wider trail. And they just kept taking over more and more and getting the Indians angry and angrier by imposing themselves on them. So that trail was necessarily growing and expanding. It was called the Bozeman Trail. And what happened was, as it got wider and wider and more gold rush settlers were coming, the chief became more upset. And guess what? Just as Rachel was saying with her chief, I'm going to say with my chief. They started to get ambushed. They started to attack the forts they had built along the trail. And they shut down the trail. How's that for a protest? They shut down the trail. Anyway, she said the word enough. That's exactly what I have here. Enough! But they said it in the Indian language. And then it was time for a treaty. Fighting and fighting and fighting, just kept killing more and more both sides of the parties. Although we know who the guilty party was. It was those greedy gold diggers. Because, as she said, what need did they have of gold? The Indians were very fair. They traded one thing that the other was best in. They had their own skills. They traded for what they could. And they didn't need gold. They didn't need money. They didn't need anything except what they could trade each other with. So they got a little sick of it, and they gave in, and the negotiations started. And in 1868, the Sioux Treaty of 1868 was signed. The Indians were being fine about the whole thing, starting to live peacefully again. Oh, those gold diggers just had to keep on coming. They started up all over again, got them all riled up again, and another war started. That first war, in case I didn't mention it, was Red Cloud's War. This was his personal war. By the time the second war started, the other tribes in the area wanted to get in with it. But he said, no, this is our problem. These are our trails. We will handle it. And again, they had another war from 1876 to 1877 called the Lakota War. And the same thing happened. They attacked the trespassers, violence occurred, and it just went on and on and on for a few years. Second time, enough! I don't know what the word for enough is in the Indian language, but I'm sure they yelled it even louder this time because this was the second time they infringed on them. So then they came to this peaceful agreement, but what happened was, talking about the treaty, sadly they took the tribes out of that area so it wouldn't happen a third time, and they moved them to another territory called Pine Hill Reservation. And in Pine Hill Reservation, they weren't happy because here you were settled once, and you were moved, and then you settled again, and then you moved. And you say to yourself, when is the settling going to stop? But the government got smart and said, all right, now we can have free run of the trail. We moved them away. Anyway, there were no more wars as far as these people's property is concerned because it was taken from them. And in essence, it was given to somebody else that didn't even put good use to it. What they did was they used it to go to their gold rush places. And it's very sad, but anyway, Chief Red Cloud served his people for a very, very long time. He was there until 1881, and then he died at 1887. He was buried in that Pine Hill Reservation, but I want folks that are listening to think about what's going on now. Talk about them being moved to South Dakota. Everybody knows what happened in 2017 with the problem with the water and the underground pipe being built. And they were afraid that that pipe could burst, just like old pipes in our city right here are bursting 75 to 100 years later, and they're afraid that's going to poison their water, and they have every right to complain. They didn't want to be there. They liked their old reservation. They were moved there. I think they have every right to complain, fellow Toastmasters and listeners. Oh, P.S. Just realized there is a beautiful picture of this wonderful person. Only wanted peace and their own land.
Thank you very much, Joan. Nice research. Thank you very much. And now, guess who's next?
Yes.
My next speaker is Mary Joseph Batchelor, and Mary's a very dear friend, and we'll learn more about her another time. But you are talking about Chief Cochise.
Yes.
And I just want to let people know these are all the chiefs that Greg has painted, and these are his original paintings that he sent to me. Well, I had his daughter, I guess, send them to me. But you're doing Chief Cochise, and why don't you start telling us about your chief for today?
Surely.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster and audience. I'm very pleased to be here today to honor Gregory Perillo as the artist that he is. He has painted all of the paintings that we have seen so far But if we were to look at each one of them to see the detail, the structures on the face, the actual details of every one of those chiefs, the life they led is so exemplified in each one of the portraits. And we can only stop to see how much these Indians really did mean to Gregory. And for that, we are thankful. He is a beloved artist here in Staten Island, and to all those who know him and know of his work. But today, my chief is Chief Cochise, and not much has been written about him in his early life. But what we do know about him, it begins in the mid-19th century, and he was a prominent leader in the Chiricahua Band of the Apache Indians. And they basically were based in the southern part of Arizona and the northern part of Mexico. So he was pretty much on the borderline and traversed both Arizona and in Mexico. But just like any other Apache group, Cochise resented the encroachment that both the armies had on him and also the Mexicans that had on him. So he was getting it from both sides. That particular tribe were being encroached upon by both, and they just resented it. As we have heard in other chief and different Apaches, the Indians who dwelled on this land before the Americans actually came about, as the Americans came across the continent of the United States, it was as if they were pushing them out. And so this was something that Cochise just felt enough, just as we've heard before. And one of the things that was very interesting is that the Americans had a huge misunderstanding with Chief Cochise. And this is where it came in. Although they did, you know, it wasn't that the Apaches didn't do their part, but they did it in rebellion. They did it in protection. They did it to support their tribe. And so in October of 1860, a band of Apaches did attack a ranch. This ranch was owned by an Irish American by the name of John Ward. And John Ward had adopted a son, and the son's name was Felix Tellez. Now, the day that this ranch was attacked, John Ward wasn't there. But when he did arrive home, he did know, of course, that his son was kidnapped. And he was certain, he was fairly certain, that the one that had kidnapped his adopted son was spearheaded by Cochise. So, of course, Ward had influence with the military and just told them, I demand that the U.S. Army dispatch a bunch of soldiers and go and find Cochise, because after all, Cochise is the one that kidnapped my son. And he wanted to have Cochise brought to justice. And that's understandable if you know all the facts. So, of course, the U.S. Army did oblige, and they did go, and they went about, and it was led by Lieutenant George Bascom. Now, George Bascom, he, with all the knowledge that he was given, truly felt that we're going to hunt down Cochise, because after all, he was the one that spearheaded this attack on this particular ranch. So we will do what we were asked to do, and that is to bring him to justice. And when they finally did catch up with Cochise, Cochise was unaware of any of this that had happened, because he was not the one that spearheaded this attack that day on that ranch. Had he others? Of course, but not that one, not that day, and did not kidnap John Ward's son. So when they came about and they tried, he thought that they were going to have somewhat of a peace treaty, and Bascom had said, Lieutenant Bascom had said, well, let's get together, let us entertain one another, and I would assume to pursue peace. And the night that Cochise and his tribe, the Apache tribe, arrived, and of course the military and Lieutenant John Bascom, when they arrived, what they found was that they were going to arrest him. They wanted to arrest him. And what's really, I think, is ironic, they imprisoned him in a tent. That's going to be an imprisonment? I mean, that's his home, a tent. So he knew very well what to do. He took a knife and he said, I will not be a prisoner here in this tent, cut a hole in the tent and escaped. 10 years later, they're still looking for Cochise. But in that time, Cochise felt that he wanted retribution, and he did go out and he did cause many more attacks, caused the military thousands of dollars, destroyed many properties, and they wanted peace. They said this was enough. It was too bad that Cochise never made it to the peace treaty because he had died. He died in about 1874. And what had happened is that when he did die, they buried him in a place called the Dragoon Mountains. And they lowered his body into this cavern, and he is still there to this day. Now, we would think, well, then that's the end of the story for Cochise. But this is where the irony comes in. Because 10 years after that, Felix Tellez, the son of John Ward, reappears on the scene. And what we find is that he was used as a scout for the U.S. Army because he knew how to speak Apaches. And he told them it was not Cochise that had kidnapped him. And all of this dwells around the fact that Cochise was right when he said, I had nothing to do with this kidnapping. And so today we come to see that if anyone were to travel into the area of the Dragoon Mountains, there lies Chief Cochise, a warrior who fought for his Indian tribe and was truly innocent till the day he died. And this is a picture of Chief Cochise. Madam Toastmaster?
Thank you very much, Mary.
Thank you.
Did a lot of that. Everybody did wonderful research. All right, now it's my time, and you're going to evaluate my 39th High Performance Leadership Project. So I met Greg Perillo at least 40 years ago. My son was a little boy, and I was running a political forum on my front porch. My friend Shirley Whitty was having her South Shore Artist Group hang paintings around the front fence and down the side street. And I had access to Greg's address. I will never divulge where I found that address. He knows, he thought it was very humorous. I wrote him a letter and I said that I heard of him, didn't know him, but I'd like to invite him to come and hang one of his paintings on my front porch during this political rally for our past Congressman Guy Molinari. Nothing happened. And then one day I got a phone call. And he said, this is Crazy Horse. Crazy Horse don't hang on fences. Do you have an easel? I said, no. He said, well, if you get one, you can come to my house and I'll let you use a painting. So I bought an easel. Still have it in the attic. But anyway, that was my first. We got to his house. Thank goodness it was a holiday at school, and Peter was about 8 or 9 years old. And he opened the door in pajamas with paint all over them. I said, oh, I'm sorry. He said, no. He said, come on in. I said, is your wife home? He said, nah, she's working. See, Greg didn't have a college education, so our mutual eye doctor always says I'm the only one who does Greg Perillo better than Greg Perillo because I've known him so long and I can imitate him. A friendship grew, and we've had a wonderful relationship all these years. So I decided about 5 years ago to honor him on his birthdays, and we've had fun with that. I wanted to just show the folks the one year that we had an afternoon with Gregory Perillo at your church. Mary is a pastor, the Hands for Christ Community Church. Mary did the whole service, whole religious service, with our Toastmasters taking part. Greg donated a painting, Uplift the Spirit, 4 little children. And our friend from this club, Gene Kramer, won, and Greg every year gave us something that we could raffle off so that we could pay dues for people who really could not afford the dues. We had a wonderful program. We talked all about the artist's life, and we put it on a program, and I'm very proud that the day worked well. Now, my favorite one of the Indians, and I'm not doing research, I'm just sort of glossing over now, but Crazy Horse. This painting I found at Greg's house, and I do want to show it. Peter, would you please, or Isaac, put this up? Yeah, that's Crazy Horse, and the thing about Crazy Horse, Fern Rashkova couldn't be here today, but she has researched Crazy Horse. This particular picture is not the one that she's going to be bringing when she can get here, but Greg used his own face for the face of Crazy Horse. And if you see Greg on if you see an old show that we've done with Greg, you'll know that it's very remarkable, Greg Perillo. Anyway, so let me go on a little bit more. Every year I've taken credit for doing high performance leadership. This program started about 1.5 years ago. I know what I'm doing next year. God willing, we're both still here. You could pray on your Sundays because I have a very different idea for his birthday next year. We always film his birthday on the first Saturday of every month. But Mother Nature decided that we weren't going to be here to do a show on the first Saturday of March. So that's why we're doing this on April 7th, and according to the weather the other day, I didn't think we'd be here anyway. But I've always been welcome at Greg's house. In fact, he and Mary, well, he built a house that he designed himself in Tottenville, about 1 mile or so away from my house. I've been there many times, and after my medical problem with strokes, I just found it too difficult to go down all the stairs to get to his house. So when I wanted to talk to him, he'd come out and we'd sit in the car and we'd talk. I just want to let people know that he donated all of his Holocaust paintings to the Wagner College Holocaust Museum, and that showing is going on someday very soon, I think the 10th or 11th. This show will be taping the next 2 Saturdays. Each one of our shows tapes for 2 shows on Channel 34 for 2 Saturdays. Then the show we do this afternoon will show the following 2. But I want to tell you, it broke my heart when I knew Greg was definitely moving. At his age, his kids wanted him in Florida. His wife wanted him in Florida. Mary is a member of our Women's Club of Tottenville for many, many years. So I'd like Peter to put up the picture that I took of Greg standing beside my car, saying goodbye, and this is one of the most beautiful pictures. It's not the prettiest picture that I've ever seen of Greg Perillo, but that's Greg Perillo when he's saying goodbye to me, and I'll tell you, I think we both had tears in our eyes that day. Isn't it something? It's just, he's so wholesome, and he's so good, and I want to show Peter, for everybody, if you could just put up the little girl. That day, Greg gave me a present. I guess a going-away present. The girl doesn't have a name, but it's a pencil sketching. He did sign it on the corner. I have them in my book. And Greg gave it to me. He said, I want you to have something very special. And I looked at it. I get very weepy because this man has a heart of gold and he just loves everybody. And everybody who knows him loves him. But his son came to the car and he said, yes, she's 50s. I said, she's 50s? Because I had said to Greg, how old is the little girl? He said, she's 50s. But then Greg explained, he was an art student when he did this. And he started out sketching drawings. And this is the girl from the 1950s. I treasure it. I absolutely love it. She doesn't have a name. She's just a little girl, and she's a sweetheart. But Greg Perillo, now we've had your party, we've had here, and as I said, my favorite picture is this one of Crazy Horse, and I'm holding it up here. Let's see, there it is.
You got it.
All right, Fern Rashkova, when she's doing a public speaking class out in Long Island for a few months, but she has another picture that he's done of Crazy Horse as one of the chiefs. The other thing about Greg, I have an idea for him. He's living in Florida, in Clearwater, Florida, and after the school tragedy down in Florida recently, I called him. We talk probably about every week or so, and I said, I have a beautiful idea for you. He said, tell me about it. And I did. And I'm not talking about it until he talks to his kids and his wife. He has sounding boards, and they tell him exactly what he should do. Whether he does it all the time is a little bit different. But it's an idea where I thought he could put his own stamp on his new move down into Florida. So actually, that's I can't say enough about this man, Gregory Perillo. But my show for next year in March, if Mother Nature blesses us, I have another idea that I haven't done before, and right now he likes it, so we'll see what happens between now and next year. But I'm going to close now. This is my high performance leadership. It took me about a year or so to get this all organized with the help of everyone who took part today. And I'm starting the next one for next year. I'll be filing this after July for this club. So that's that. Anyway, my friend Greg. One more thing. He gave Peter a lithograph of Custer, The Last Stand, from Custer's point of view. I didn't want to bring it today because it's a comical, but he gave me a lithograph to give to Peter. You'll have to look on the gregperillo.com. He may have posted it up there, but it was hysterical. Someday I'll have to show it to you. But anyway, okay, thank you. Now, oh yes, we have a little bit more of the show. I asked each of our speakers, including two people who are part of the show, but weren't giving Indians. These are the only Indians that Greg painted, by the way, even though more chiefs have been talked about. These were the ones that he had painted. So here's the table topic question, and you're all getting the same question. A very quick response because I'm watching the time. Does that say 10 minutes? Okay, that should be fine. Here's the speech, and they didn't get this ahead of time, so they have to just come up with it. If you could send Greg a special birthday wish, what would it be? Let's start with Sue Brooks.
Madam Toastmaster, Greg Perillo, congratulations on your 91st birthday celebration, and I'm delighted that you're here in spirit with us, watching the show, and that we're able to honor your life and your history and your contributions, not only to the Native Americans who you painted, but also to the love of nature that you've had and exhibited in your other artworks, as well as your other true love for painting in life, and that is for baseball. Continue doing what you do so well, continue to inspire us, and continue to inspire people to travel out to the West, as you did in Arizona, to learn from the best of the best. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Sue. Our second speaker was, let me just look at my list, Paul Scharf. Okay, Paul.
Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our guest, who's not here.
He's here in spirit.
He's here in spirit. The birthday present gift idea that I thought of was, although we're missing one of our 6 speakers, the 6 Indian chiefs that we talked about, or the 5 of them that we talked about, right here on one piece of paper. And on the bottom of it, it says, a short story of the 6 chiefs. I better read it frontwards instead of backwards. A short story of the 6 chiefs presented at Toastmasters in the community on April 7th, 2018, Staten Island, New York. And I'd like to give this to you, Fran, to give to him or send to him when you send out the package of whatever's going to go to him.
Yeah, Peter will fix it up, yeah.
Other than the individual sheets, there's this individual pictures of the Indian chiefs is on one page.
Thank you very much.
What we did.
He'll love it. He'll love it.
I'll
Thank
give you
Paul.
that later. Thank you very much.
You won't get out of the building before you do.
That's right.
Thank you.
Oh,
And next we have Rachel Weiss with Chief Black Kettle. At first I thought he was very angry, but he's got a nice face, doesn't he?
Does.
I'm sorry, Rachel, it's your moment.
Not a problem, Fran. Greg, happy birthday. Happy 91st birthday. I trust that you'll have many more now that you're out of all of this snow and all of this ice and into the sunshine of Florida. I give you my best greetings of Northern Lights from Florida for that studio that I know you're going to love and enjoy and cherish. And I know your heart is still here with us on Staten Island. Know that our heart is with you. And no matter how many miles there are between us, the bond goes tighter and stronger just because we love you. Happy birthday.
Amen.
Beautiful, Rachel. Thank you so much. And Mary, what wish do you have for Greg?
For Greg, happy birthday. I wish I could still be dancing with you under the strobing lights that you have in your home, because I know how much you love to dance. But I just wish that you continue to paint and to use your strokes to grant everyone the happiness, the peace, and the love that you show through your paintings. It's a legacy that you leave behind for so much more and for so many of us to enjoy and to cherish. We love you here in Staten Island, and I am sure that Florida will get a beautiful taste of you as well. Enjoy your 91st birthday. Thank you.
I forgot Joan over there. I was going to this page. All right, Joan, I know you have a wish for Greg.
I want to say amen to everything everyone else said, but it's not in my power to give him this birthday gift, but I would pray to God to give him at least another 100 years. Because here is a man who will not stop painting, and his talent continues through each series he's done. I've been fortunate enough through Fran to be able to see all the things he's done, all the displays he's put on, even going back more than 15 years ago. So I have to say that I would love for him to just go on in life. Don't get frail, 120, 130. Just live to 195 or more and just keep on producing the beautiful stuff he does. It's great.
Right.
And like I said, amen to everything else that everyone else said.
Before I wrap
and all the
this-
people coming.
Joan, stay there for a minute. I want you on screen. All right? Joan is the one I was going to talk at the end of the show, which it is, about the Vietnam Veterans Memorial show that Greg put on. He had, what was it, a 3-foot statue of a soldier during Vietnam, and I believe it was 32 paintings. And 3 cars of us from Toastmasters went over
That was
to
fun.
Homedale, New Jersey. It's a beautiful museum in the round, and we took pictures of everything. He called me one day. See, I told you, Greg didn't have a college degree, but you know, you don't have to have a college degree to do the right thing. And he called and he said, Fran, I need a painter, I need a printer. I said, why? He knows nothing about a computer. Everything is Mary P. at. I said, what do you want a printer for? He said, I want to get the opening picture, painting for the museum in Homedale. I said, do you mean a calligrapher? What's that? I said, do you want a fancy printer? Yeah. I said, I'll bring Joe Maurizio down. She does calligraphy better than anybody I've ever seen. She had a workshop in my house one time. I was the only one who couldn't do it. Had a whole dining room full of people, and they did beautiful. I just don't have that. I have other things. We all have our own attributes. But Joan went down. I spoke to Mary. Joan was in the other room with Greg. She kept coming out. Do you like this one? It's too small, I said. The writing. It was a soldier going up the hill in Vietnam, and the writing was, tell me again.
Something about heroes.
What?
Something about
Something
heroes.
about
I
heroes.
forget.
I should have written it down.
Yeah.
At any rate, she kept coming out. How about, I said, well, you make it bigger. You know, people are going to be walking into this huge building. You can't see the title up there. Well, she finally did it, filled the space. And when we walked into that museum, and that was right at the opening going into that whole room, and it was so beautiful of you standing by that sign that you made. So there's a piece of you in Greg's heart, and you know that too.
Well, he's in all
Okay.
of our hearts. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, Joan, thank you. Now, I sent Greg, I knew we were going to have bad weather on his birthday, which was March 12th. It was also our Kevin Thompson's birthday here, and he will be here probably next month. But I sent him a birthday greeting. See, happy 91st birthday, Greg, from me. But I got this back. And I know it's probably Mary because, you know that. He says, "Thank you, Fran, for the birthday wishes and for being my friend. Loving kisses, Greg." Everything is always loving kisses. He loves giving kisses. You know that. Lots and lots of kisses, all right? So I'm going to ask the other people here. Paul, you didn't get an Indian because you only painted 6 of the Indians, but why don't you, if you want,
Sure.
tell us what you'd like to wish him for his birthday.
Greg, happy birthday. As I was lucky enough to be on 2 of your birthdays for the last 2 years, last year I got a print of a I think it was a white stallion, and it's among my treasured gifts, and I keep it in a folder I have of all of my Toastmasters mementos. So I hope I get a chance that you'll come back here and give me another memento. In any case, I'm wishing you a very happy birthday.
Okay, thank you very much. And where is Linda? Linda, please. These are some of our evaluators. The evaluations will be done after the show, between the 2 meetings that we're having here. And you've written your evaluations. Just tell the person one way that they could improve. That's it. All right, let's just make it easy. Linda, thank you. Linda Isaacs, would you like to tell Greg something for yourself?
Birthday wishes for someone, or a birthday gift for someone who's getting older, reminds me of the challenges I had in figuring out gifts from my parents. My mother would always say she wanted love and understanding. My father already had everything that he wanted, so one year I wrote him a detailed letter expressing my gratitude for who he was and everything that he'd done for me, and he framed it. So what I'd like to wish for you for your 91st birthday is many, many people expressing their gratitude and their good wishes for your birthday, which I think you're getting now, and also love and understanding. I hope your 91st birthday is wonderful, and thanks to Fran for making this show happen so I could learn about you.
Thank you very much, Linda. And our time is just about up, Mary, so I'll say goodbye to you and goodbye to everybody. See us on Channel 34 every Saturday night on Staten Island.